wanted to have a say in what movies are chosen for watch-alongs on YouTube channels? Do you want to have your voice heard? Are you disappointed in the channel owner's choices? Now you can. Deadates on Deck wants to know what content you want to see discussed. Stop by my live streams for your chance to pick the next watch-along I cover. Throw your hat in the ring when you give $5 or more in Super Chats during my next live stream.
Howdy, gang. And it feels like I've been away forever. I know I've done a few things sporadically here and there, watch alongs, and the new introduction to Corn on the Cob, which is a little expose on the films of Sandy Cobe, the films that Sandy Cobe produced. If you don't know who the heck Sandy Cobe is, check out the couple of episodes of Corn on the Cob that I have out now, and you'll be well versed in Sandy Cobe in no time. So, first of all, excuse my voice. Many of you know that I am still recovering from COVID, that I had COVID just after Christmas. And so I don't look too good. I put a little makeup on. So, I told Candice and I told Steve, I said, so I don't look like Night of the Living Dead. So I'm attempting to look a little better, but you can only do so much, right? So, but again, I'm sure, or I hope, that you guys aren't on here to look at me. You're on here because of whatever me and Candace may be talking about. And I'm sure Candace will be on here shortly. I know she had a lot of things to do this afternoon, so if she's a little bit late, I will add her when she gets on here. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, it's Friday Foolish Into the Zone. And in that case, it means the Twilight Zone. So, we are going to be talking a little bit about the first season of the original Twilight Zone show. This is a personal favorite of mine, a personal favorite of Candace's. And we have been talking back and forth about what we wanted to do the next Friday Foolish on. So we're probably going to be doing this for a little while. We'll be covering a season of Friday, unless we get a bee in our bonnet about doing something else right smack dab in the middle of it, which is, certainly a possibility. I don't think Candace has had a chance to watch this yet, But I'm also going to be talking a little bit about the Twilight Zone from the 80s, which is something I remember growing up with. I didn't grow up with the original Twilight Zone. The original Twilight Zone was something that was way past me. You know, I was not born until 1976. And the Twilight Zone started in the 50s and went into the like 64 or something like that. But before it was all said and done, I think about 6 seasons or so, 5, 6 seasons, something like that. So I believe it was 5, but if I'm wrong, you know, y'all feel free to correct me if I am wrong. I will not mind. Also, have figured out how, and I was so proud of myself. It took me a little bit, but I figured out how to add some new fonts to StreamYard's list of fonts. I thought I was just going to be, you know, limited to what they had. But I figured out how to add my own. And so me and Candice, when Candice gets on here, we will have, and you can see mine there, that is the Twilight Zone font that was used on, supposedly used on the artwork. And it looks pretty close to what I'm looking at here on my DVD set. So I was really proud of that. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I had some kind of Twilight Zone font that I could use for me and Candice's names on here and all that good stuff. So now that I know how to do that, I'll be trying to find fonts that go along with the theme of whatever either I'm doing or me and Candice are doing or whoever is on here with me, including watch-alongs. You know, I know some people might not care a hoot about that, but it excites me. You know, it doesn't take much to excite me a lot of times. So I'm going to be kind of supplementing the conversation by talking about a few of my favorite episodes from season 1 of the Twilight Zone from the 80s as well. So you're going to get all kinds of little tidbits. And me and Candice have been talking that people seem to like the conversational back and forth, kind of unstructured type of way that we've been doing the last few Friday Foolishes. And so I was like, I don't see any reason to stop that. If it works, you know, you don't need to do anything else with it. Just keep going with it. And I see Candice on there, and I'm going to add her in just a sec. But I did want to let everybody know, too, this is going to be one of our shorter shows because both me and Candice are trying to recover from illnesses. And so neither one of us is feeling too great this evening. And Candice has a few things that she needs to do this evening. So before the snow apocalypse gets completely out of control. We had Winter Storm Blair, and now it's, what is it, Cora or something? I don't know. They name the winter storms now. So we've got one winter storm on top of the other right now. But before I add Candice, I want to remind everybody I've got a couple of watch-alongs coming up this weekend. Me and Steve are finally going to be doing the hopefully much anticipated Roadhouse watch along. I know Candice said she's not a fan of Roadhouse, but she may come into the chat if she can. Sometimes Candice will pop in, even if she's not a big fan of the movie. So that's why she's such a good friend. She comes in even when the subject matter might not be something she's too keen on. That's what being a good friend is. You know, you hang out, you come in and hang out sometimes, even when the subject matter is like, you know. So anyway, the other one I've got coming up is one that Russell picked, and it's Thief, starring James Caan. And Russell told me that it's available on YouTube. So if you want to watch along on Sunday, at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Both of the watch-alongs will be at that time. Then you should be able to watch it on YouTube. That's where I'm going to be watching it because I don't have a copy of it, and I love James Caan, so I'm kind of looking forward to viewing this one. So anyway, before I lose our audience here, I'm going to go ahead and add Candice real quick. Hey, Candice.
Hey, let me sit you down a little here.
Did you notice the font? That's a Twilight Zone font.
Oh, is it? Yeah, it's hard to see on this little phone, but I'll look at it.
Hey, the poet. I figure if somebody is watching this on a TV or something later, they'll or if they're watching it now on a TV, they'll probably be able to see that font better. But that is a Twilight Zone font, supposedly. Cool. Supposedly the promotional type of font that they use for posters and things for the original Twilight Zone. But I was so proud of myself, Candice. That's why I was telling people earlier that I figured out how to add my own downloaded fonts to StreamYard. So now I can have a theme with the fonts,
That's good. Yeah, a little bit more creativity then.
Yeah, don't take much to make this girl happy. So I was excited about that. So I take it you probably didn't get a chance to watch any of the 80s version of the...
No, and I'm not familiar with them, so...
Okay. So what I'm going to do is just kind of here and there, I'll mention an episode from season 1 of the 80s Twilight Zone, and we'll just go from there. But I did tell everybody that we're going to kind of do the loosey-goosey form kind of conversational back and forth with this, because that seems to be something that a lot of people like and are comfortable with. And
it was also kind of a last minute thing, and I've not got to watch I know them, I've seen them 1,000 times. It's just been so long. So I didn't get to sit down and watch any of them. I think I watched 2.
I watched the first 3 discs, but I didn't. And the first episode of the 4th disc.
Yeah.
But there are 5 discs in the first season, so
I didn't 30 some episodes, right?
Yeah, it's 34, 36, something like that as far as episodes. So we're going to kind of do like a highlight reel type of thing where we talk about some favorite episodes.
Yeah. And I'll be more prepared next time.
Well, I will too. And I meant to be more prepared because I've been just watching these, like binge watching them.
Yeah.
I've been doing. And then today, binge watching just kind of fell apart because I had, a guinea pig cage that was calling me to be cleaned and all kinds of things. So anyway, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. And I have the list of episodes.
I've got them pulled up here in front of me. So if you see me looking, I'm just looking at it shows a picture and a brief description of them. So and it helps me remember what they're about.
Right. So season 1, episode 1. And this was one that I liked.
Yeah, I liked that episode.
It had the, how shall I say, the Twilight Zone flavor. And Candice probably knows what I'm talking about when I say Twilight Zone flavor, because there are some episodes that, although good, they don't have that flavor of the Twilight Zone. And by that, I mean that bizarre, unnerving kind of feeling that some of the episodes cause you to have.
Yeah. And the thing about that episode, it's been so long since I've seen it, but I know exactly what it's about. The weird thing about that episode is it's kind of one of the more normal explanations. It's not like otherworldly type, you know what I mean? It's
not like supernatural so much. There's a cause for this. But we have a man who we see, and the episode is called "Where Is Everybody?"
Yeah.
So we open the episode with a guy walking down the road, and he seems to have like a uniform of some sort on, but it's sort of plain. We don't see any kind of identifying marks or anything like that. He's just kind of like a everyman.
Yeah, and he's like confused.
Yeah, and he comes into this town and he doesn't really know how he got there. He says, I think he says at one point, he says, it's like I woke up and I was just on this road.
Yeah.
So he has no memory of how he got to this place. But when he gets to this town, it looks like, a town that's inhabited by people. There are, little cafes and banks and different, there's different things that would be in a small town. But he doesn't see any people. And this reminds me of, I think this was an episode from Twilight Zone in the 80s. And sometimes I get confused with Twilight Zone from the 80s and Tales from the Dark Side. Let me see if I can find that one, because I kind of wanted to compare. I just don't want to be talking out of my butt about this. And it may have been it might have been one of the later season episodes, but there was an episode where a guy was being punished. It was a futuristic episode. A guy was being punished for coldness, for treating people cold.
Yeah.
And so he was subjected to, I believe, a year of invisibility. And what they did was they put a mark on his head. It would look like a piece of wax or something that they would put on his head. And when other people would see that, they would know, oh, he's invisible. I can't talk to him. And they also had these little flying, like, orbital things that would, like, if somebody was blind, because he meets up with a blind man who cannot see that he's got this mark on his forehead, and he starts talking to him, and either one of these little devices will come up or somebody will whisper in their ear, invisible.
Oh.
And and then the old man turns away from him, and he gets to the point where he's like, please, somebody talk to me. He's begging me. He's crying. Please, somebody just talk to me. So it reminded me of a little bit of this episode, because the man gets desperate to find some other human being to talk to.
Yeah, because it's all just like desolate and nobody around. It looks like a town that's been inhabited, like there's people just there. But it's, he can't find anybody, and he's like confused. And I always remember, because whenever we would watch, because I would watch these with my dad, and we had the box sets, the DVD box sets, and we would sit and watch them all the time. And I remember when we would start it, because we'd start it from the beginning to end, I always remember that episode, how like eerie, like when it starts and he's walking, because there's a few Twilight Zone episodes where that deals with like deserted towns and stuff, like people getting put in these places where either something's frozen or it's different things. But that one, it's always eerie to me, because I mean, I don't know, just the thought of just being the last man or woman on earth or something, that kind of thought is scary to me. I don't know why.
It is scary to me too, and you do get like goosebumps a little bit watching this episode. And we're talking about, these are not super long episodes.
No.
They're about 25 minutes. You're not watching them with commercials. But you know what I liked, and I bet your set was probably like this too, Candice, is that they would book in the episodes, and you will actually see stuff from the Danny Thomas show,
Yeah.
Stuff from Wanted Dead or Alive with Steve McQueen. There were different things, and it's also bookended with Rod Serling, who
Yeah.
was the creator of this show, which I wanted to talk to Candice a little bit about. This is part of this free form stuff, whatever, comes to our head. I wanted to talk a little bit to Candice about Rod Serling and what her impression of Rod Serling is, since he was the creator of the original Twilight Zone.
I love Rod Serling. I mean, I was, for as long as I can remember, I can never not remember a time when I wasn't watching the Twilight Zone. I grew up with it, watching it on TV, and I probably watched the ones from the 80s too when I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't remember it. If it was on TV, then I probably seen it. But we always loved the Twilight Zone. My dad was a huge fan. This was one of his favorite shows of all time.
My dad liked it too, and The Outer Limits, which I would love me and Candice to be able to cover The Outer Limits.
Well. And that would be cool too. But the Twilight Zone, I mean, it was something that was. I remember as a kid always being entranced because I'd be outside playing all day, and then I'd come in and it was time to watch TV, and you would feel good and was tired. But I always remember when the Twilight Zone would come on, I'd always be entranced with the intro and the door and the eyeball and just the space of it all. And Rod Serling, his voice was just like Robert Stack's to me, from Unsolved Mysteries. It drew you in. It was kind of also like Alfred Hitchcock. I always loved watching like the Alfred Hitchcock Hour and stuff like that. Yeah. They had one of those voices like Vincent Price as well, that was made for this supernatural, creepy type stuff. And what I always loved about Rod Serling is he was this guy in this suit, kind of like Robert Stack, but he himself wasn't creepy. He looked like he belonged in the Rat Pack or something, but he just the way he talked, it was like he was from another dimension. I mean, it really was.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know. I thought he was fantastic.
Even though sometimes Rod Serling did creep me out though. I don't know if it was, do you remember how his teeth looked? He had that space between his teeth. And I'm not making fun of the guy or anything.
I thought it was attractive myself.
But he was, he wasn't a bad looking man. But sometimes a certain way he would smile or something was very
right?
Yeah, it was just unsettling sometimes. Yeah. And I don't know if Candice felt that way ever or not.
Well, I didn't feel about him the way I felt about Robert Stack. He gave off a creepy, even if it was something not supernatural that he was talking about, like some kind of crime or something. He was like the epitome of creepiness. I mean, even over like Vincent Price or something. I don't know. There's something about Unsolved Mysteries that just it's one of my favorites, but it's creepy. But with Rod Serling, he to me embodied what the show, like his persona, the way he would speak about each show at the beginning and at the end, and then he would come back on and he would preface the upcoming episode, like the next episode, and the way he would speak and stuff, it was like he was from the Twilight Zone. This thing was created, and I remember whenever I was reading The Veil by Ray Bradbury, I got this connection. Like I was thinking of the Twilight Zone. Like this is the Twilight. It's like the Twilight Zone. Like an episode from that. But he was creepy, not in a supernatural way, but like an alien. Does that make sense? I don't know.
I mean, there's something otherworldly about Rod Serling.
Yeah,
there definitely is, and I can't put my finger on it, but there is definitely something otherworldly about that man.
Yeah.
And I just, he's something else about Rod Serling is a natural storyteller.
Yeah.
And he can either take a story that because some of these stories I think he came up with himself, because it will actually say written by Rod Serling or whatever. But there were also, since Candace brought up Ray Bradbury, that reminded me that a lot of these early stories are by Richard Matheson, who I absolutely love. Richard Matheson. I love Ray Bradbury, but I also love Richard Matheson as well. Richard Matheson, I think Richard Matheson was ahead of his time. Just kind of like H.P. Lovecraft. I thought H.P. Lovecraft was
Yes.
as well. But Richard Matheson was writing about stuff that they were able to make movies out of his material and make it relevant to the time period in which these movies came out. They're timeless. And I think because many of Richard Matheson's stories are so timeless, I think that's why they still work today if somebody's watching the Twilight Zone.
Now, who wrote I Am Legend?
I think that was Richard Matheson.
I thought, I've read that, and it was, I've seen the movie as well. There's probably been a couple movies made kind of around
Stir of Echoes was another one. I absolutely love that movie with Kevin Bacon and Aliana Douglas.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I love Kevin Bacon anyway, but that one is a real good one. Stir of Echoes. I think that one is, it's creepy. It's a very creepy film. Yeah.
But like I said, the timeless quality of Richard Matheson's work, I think, is why we're able to just keep coming back.
Yeah.
And Ray Bradbury has that quality as well. And you can continually go back to Ray Bradbury's work and reapply it to stories now or refashion it. And it still fits in our modern times. It's very weird how they do that, but they're timeless classics, I guess, is how they can do that. But Candice, did we want to talk about the reveal of this first episode? Where is everybody?
If you want to. I mean, if people don't, if you've never seen the Twilight Zone or never seen this episode, this is a time if Dana's wanting to reveal what the thing is.
I may not reveal all of them, but I was this one. I thought I would go ahead and.
Okay, that'd be fine. I mean, so push me.
Plug your ears or do something if you don't want to hear me talk about this. Okay. So we had this whole setup with the guy not being able to find anybody. He's becoming more and more frantic as time goes on. And then we discover that he's basically, the military has him in some kind of isolation
deprivation
chamber.
Yeah.
And this is all some kind of dream. Yeah. And they've been monitoring him. And when he gets so upset, they're like, get him out of there.
Because he'd been in there for like hours and like days and days and
days.
I
think he'd been in there for days. Yeah. And I could only imagine the shock of being, awakened from whatever dream or whatever you were in, and having these people come to you and say, "Oh yeah, we've had this deprivation chamber."
He was just basically driven insane from isolation.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, which again reminded me of that episode, I believe, from the Twilight Zone from the 80s, where the guy was sentenced to 1 year of invisibility. Because lack of human interaction can be very detrimental to another human being. And I could just, it haunts me to think of not being able to have anybody to talk to.
Yeah, that would be
not be able to touch or speak or be in love with another human being on this planet. I mean, how horrible of an existence would that be? to be so lonely. And that's another thing that is a pervading theme that goes through a lot of these Twilight Zone episodes
Yeah.
is being alone in one way or another,
Yeah.
or something bizarre happening where you feel apart from everybody else. You feel like something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to, and I know that, and I'm not going to talk at length about these, but I just wanted to interject here, and then we'll go back to the original Twilight Zone of one of my favorite episodes of the 1980s Twilight Zone incarnation, and it was actually the first episode, which was directed by Wes Craven. Wes Craven kind of was the person that spearheaded the Twilight Zone from the 80s. And this aired September 27th, 1985, and starred Bruce Willis. And the episode was called Shatterday. And so Bruce Willis plays this guy named Jay Novins. And the episode starts out, he goes to a bar and he's supposed to be meeting up with his lady friend. And I think he's running late, so he's wanting to call her and let her know, hey, I'm at the bar now. Do you want to, come and hang out or whatever? And he accidentally calls his own number. And he's just about to hang up and someone picks up. And they say they're Jay Novins. And he's like, no, you can't be Jay Novins. I'm Jay Novins. You can't be there. So what it turns out to be is that a part of the original Jay Novins, almost like a shadow, has broken apart from him.
Huh.
It's like another facet of his personality, because the main Jay Novins that showed up at the bar is kind of cold. He doesn't want to take care of his elderly mother, and he doesn't really have time for people. He's kind of cold towards people. But this other part that's broken apart from him is the more compassionate Jay Novins. And so eventually, by the end of the episode, the original Jay Novins that we saw in the bar just disappears. Other Jay Novins comes to see him because he can't get back in his apartment because the other Jay Novins is there. And so he tries everything he can. He takes all his money out of his bank account and stuff like that. But the other Jay Novins is one step ahead of him. He's already bought enough food for a siege, he says. So he's always one step ahead of him. So eventually, by the end of the episode, the second Jay Novins comes to see the original one, and he just literally just fades away. And the other Jay Novins takes precedence over the entire life of Jay Novins.
Well,
so very bizarre, but it very Twilight Zone-esque episode. And I thought Bruce Willis was great in it. And by the way, if anybody has not seen the 1980s version of it, it's much better than the incarnation from the early 2000s. I didn't care.
watch those either.
No offense to Jordan Peele, but I don't like.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I've not seen any of those yet.
I just have no interest in all the original Twilight Zone and Twilight Zone from the 80s. That's my jam there. That's the ones I like. So, Candice, did you want to just dive in there? I feel like I haven't let you talk much. Did you want to pick a highlight or a favorite from season?
Well, let me see what it's called here. Let me look at these. I'll pick one out of here. Sorry, I've only got my computer. And here's a good one. that I've seen. This was one of my dad's favorites. Time Enough to at Last.
Oh, I love that. This is one of my favorites too. Yeah.
Yeah, and that one, that one is one of those isolation things, like Last Man on Earth.
Yes, it is.
What's his name that plays?
Burgess Meredith.
Burgess Meredith, yeah, Burgess Meredith. He plays this guy, and he's this nerdy bookworm. He loves books, loves reading. He's always complaining because he wants to read, but he has to, do everything else. And
and he's a bank teller, and his boss doesn't want him reading, and
that's all he wants to do is read, and he can't because he is getting in trouble and all that stuff. But then was it like a big blast or something comes, and
there's I guess it's the H bomb or whatever they call it.
Because he was in a what do you call
a bank? He was in the bank vault.
Yeah. He was in the bank vault whenever it came, and he survived the blast.
Yep.
And whenever he comes out, it's like everything is bombed up. But do you want to tell what happens? With his,
I can because the poor man, he's downtrodden every step of the way. I just want to talk about his wife for a second.
Yeah.
Before the bomb happens, his wife is the most evil witch I have ever seen in my life.
He just got all kinds of bad luck.
She finds his books, he hides books everywhere, and he had this beautiful book of poetry, and she actually marked through the words, and he said, why would you do that? And then to add insult to injury, she starts tearing the pages out of it, and he said, why would you do this to this beautiful piece of literature, And all she wants to do is go play cards or whatever they're going to go do with somebody else. So, of course, the bomb happens. The big bomb is dropped. And in all reality, if a bomb was dropped, there would probably be radiation everywhere. And it would be like the day after.
Yeah, but this is the Twilight Zone.
But this is the Twilight Zone. So Burgess Meredith can crawl out of the bank vault and he's not affected by radiation. However, he is overcome with loneliness at first, and he considers committing suicide. He finds a gun, and if you've noticed throughout the episode, though, he has very thick glasses.
Coke bottle glasses.
Coke bottle glasses, exactly. And so he finally comes to his senses. He doesn't commit suicide, of course. And he sees the public library. And the public library is pretty much demolished, but the books are not.
Yeah.
And he's made stacks of these books. And he's like, time enough. I have time enough at last. I have time enough to read all these books. This will be for this year and the year after that and the year after that. And what happens? The ultimate insult breaks his glasses.
Breaks his glasses. So this guy who's been literally plagued with the worst luck ever. Now he can't read.
This would be a great scene to add to Alanis Morissette's Isn't It Ironic video.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think about, her singing Isn't It Ironic.
Yeah. He finds all the time in the world, but then he breaks his glasses. So can't even read. So yeah, I always love that episode. My dad always liked that episode.
I think that's a favorite of a lot of people.
It is. It's one of the most popular probably episodes if you compile a list. It's probably at least of the first season, probably the most popular episode of that. There's another one that I really love on there too. It's kind of popular too, but I think that one is really, really one of the best, I'd say.
I wanted to talk about one that I finished up watching last night, which is The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
Oh, yes. I love that one. That's got, what is his name? Claude Akins?
Yeah. He's in it. And, is it, Jack Weston. Jack Weston was in a lot of, classic, TV, classic movies from the 50s and 60s. In fact, he was in one of my favorite movies from the 60s with Walter Matthau and Goldie Hawn, Cactus Flower.
Yeah.
Which, I absolutely adore that movie. But I was surprised because I had forgotten that he was in this episode. I was like, dang, that's Jack Weston is in this episode. But the episode is, I think it's timely at any point in time.
It is. And I'll tell you, it's one of those episodes where, because each of the episodes kind of has a lesson to it. Yeah. But this one really resonates, especially when there's a lot of like what do you call it, like mass mob mentality and stuff like that goes into play, and believing everything you hear, and getting scared because you hear stuff and you think it's real, that this one's saying, hey, there's snake piss in the water or something like that, and you're gonna believe
and people turning on each other at the drop of a hat.
Yes, and that really plays in, because I mean, this could be your neighbor, this could be your best friend for years and years and years, and just because somebody has said something about you, or they have suspicions about you, or you do one thing and all that's down the drain, and that's something that's very relatable too for a lot of people. And that episode deals with that. I mean, in the episode, they're even like turning on a kid. So I mean,
yeah, they're gonna turn on this young boy who just mentioned something about aliens because he's a big sci-fi buff. Everybody wants to turn on him at some point, and his mother's trying to protect him. And the simplicity of the issue that causes this mass mob mentality and turning on each other is the fact that everything loses power. The vehicles will not start. The phones stop working. The lights go out. And then suspicion is cast when, at first nobody's vehicle's working.
Yeah. There was like an asteroid that went over. I think is what it was, wasn't it? Like an asteroid.
Yeah, well, they were trying to figure out what it was. And they assume it's an asteroid because that's what it appears to be. Now there's something else at work. There's like a secondary thing. Now I'm not going to reveal it this time because I want, if you've not seen The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, I would urge you to watch this.
I always love that episode. My dad liked that episode as well, and I know I mentioned my dad a lot, but me and him shared TV. That was the way we bonded, was through TV and certain music, but through TV, mostly classic TV. So
me and my dad did more so with movies and some music too as well.
But he loved Claude Akins. So he really liked that episode as well, and I remember us watching it all the time. So that's one, if I could, like, especially from the first season, if I had to give you a list of 5 of them, that one would be in it to watch.
And I had remembered watching that one before, but it's been a while, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember this one. This one's a really cool episode, and it's creepy. It's got that underlying creepiness, how neighbor can turn against neighbor. It almost has a biblical message a little bit.
I can say that
as well. I'm not trying to get all highly religious on you here, but there is, the Bible talks about brother turning against brother and neighbor turning against neighbor and different things like that. And I see that in this episode quite a bit.
And it also highlights paranoia. Public paranoia. And that's something that, we see sometimes.
And paranoia is something else that is an underlying theme in many of these episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, But you got to think about the time period in which the Twilight Zone started in the 50s.
50s.
You know, where, you know, they were afraid of communism. They were afraid,
Bombs.
yeah, they were afraid of um, things they didn't understand, like outer space and stuff.
Yeah.
What's out in outer space? Were there aliens? Were they going to come and try to
Yeah.
take us over?
And that's a lot. Space is something that you see it's a common theme in the Twilight Zone. Is aliens are dealing with space, or stuff like that. I think even that last episode that we had talked about, that dealt with space. Like, I think that guy was training to be an astronaut or something like that. That was in that deprivation tank or whatever.
Yeah.
So you see that's a common theme with the Twilight Zone is space and dealing with that kind of thing.
This another episode from the 80s Twilight Zone, which was actually the second. They had a lot of strong episodes at the beginning of the first season of the Twilight Zone from the 80s. This one was called A Little Peace and Quiet. And keep in mind that this came out in the mid 80s. So early to mid 80s. So we were still in that Cold War period where people were afraid of the bomb. They were afraid of, somebody was going to have a itchy trigger finger and there was, going to be a nuclear war. And they went on for many years. But A Little Peace and Quiet stars Melinda Dillon. And she's a wife and mother, and many days she feels like she's at the end of her rope dealing with I believe she's got 3 kids. She's a housewife, but her husband depends on her all the time. He gets a spot on his tie and he's like, you got to fix this, and she's got one of her little girls puts a dead snake in the skillet and all kinds of things, and she's just about ready to pull her hair out. So all she wants is a little peace and quiet. So she's out digging in her garden, planting flowers and stuff one day, and she finds this box, and inside this box there is a medallion, and she puts the necklace on, and she realizes that if she says for someone to be quiet or to shut up, or I know that's an ugly way to say it, but sometimes she just says, shut up, she just can't take it anymore, the kids, her husband, and everybody freezes when she says that, and she has the medallion necklace on. And when she says start talking again, they start moving and talking as if nothing ever happened. So, like, she goes to the grocery store and she wants to get Choco Pops cereal for her kids. And there's only one box. And this woman comes and takes it from her and says, well, my kids want these Choco Pops too. And I'm getting this. And she says, well, I think you just better shut up. And the whole grocery store freezes. And she takes the Choco Pops out of the woman's hands.
That sounds familiar. Not to cut you off, but that one sounds familiar.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
Yeah, that was like the second episode of season 1, and but it culminates. Here's where the bomb thing comes in. It culminates, and this is very eerie. And this is an episode I like, but it's a very hard and unsettling episode to watch to the end, because she has a couple of people, a young guy and a young woman, who come to her door and say they're from Non-Pop, and they want her to come to this debate because they want to stop people from being destroyed by the bomb, because they're convinced that that nuclear war is going to happen if we don't do something. And she said, I don't want to come to some stuffy old debate. And she tells them, I think you just better shut up. And they freeze. And she takes them out on the lawn and shuts her door. Well, a few nights later, she's taking a bath and relaxing. And all of a sudden, her husband screams for her. She comes into their bedroom. He's watching TV. And the bomb is headed from Russia straight to hit them. And her husband's crying. He's wanting to get all the kids together. What do we do? What do we do? You know, and she's just in shock. You know, she didn't ever think this day would happen. And she just can't take it anymore. She's got the medallion on. She says, shut up. And everything just stops.
Yeah.
Including the bomb. But she can't tell everybody to start talking again because the bomb will hit.
Yeah.
Destroy everything. So she leaves her house. She goes out in the town and stuff. And everybody's like pointing at the bomb. You can see the bomb getting ready to come. But there's nothing that she can do. And she's alone. She's the only person. It's very, very eerie episode. Very eerie.
It seems like, yeah, that seems very familiar. Like I've seen that before.
But so do you want, is there another one that you want to talk about, Candice? Or
yeah, let me see what it's called.
Because I know we wanted to try to keep this at an hour, so I don't want to get too crazy.
Let me see. Now, this is one of my favorite episodes. It's all, and I think I've talked about this one before. And I think it's called something After Hours. Let's see. Sorry, I'm so unprepared.
That's okay.
The After Hours. That was always one of my favorite episodes. Do you know which one I'm talking about, Dana?
Is that the one with the mannequins?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So this lady, you know, she's going she's in this like department store, and she's taken to like this ninth floor. When she goes in there, it's like an empty department store, and this lady's there, and she's going to buy a golden thimble for her mother. And when she walks in there and it's all empty, that's the only thing they have is that golden thimble. But she buys it, gives the woman like $25, and she said, you know, this is awful odd, you know, because there's nothing else in this store, and it's awful odd that the only thing that you have is what exactly I needed. And but she don't question it. She gets in the elevator and she's looking at that thimble, and she's like, oh, this is scratched and dented. I can give this to my mom. I'm gonna have to. And he said, well, the guy that the elevator guy was like, I forget what floor it was on. He was like, well, complaints is on this floor. So she gets out and goes to complain, and the guy that's like deals with complaints or whatever is going to his boss. He's like, this lady's here, and she's like basically insane, saying that, you know, if she didn't purchase this at the gift department in the store, she's saying that she got it from the ninth floor, and there is no ninth floor. So it just culminates to all this stuff, and she's like, you know, I bought this from the ninth floor. A very strange lady sold this to me, and all that stuff. So, and they're just like looking at her like, well, you know, maybe you should go lay down and stuff like that. And do you want to talk more about it, Dana? And because that
was one I didn't get to rewatch, but I do know, you know, I don't want to give too much away because that's kind of like the clincher.
Yeah.
But it is a very good episode and a very unsettling episode. It's another one of those unsettling, bizarre episodes.
Throughout the show, because we've already said it. I mean, you know, you said mannequins. I'm not going to tell you what mannequins play in part of it, but in the episode, there's mannequins all in the store, and they're like these fashionable mannequins and stuff like that. And you just have to pay attention to things. And but this lady, you know, she's just basically she's wanting to know what happened. Why is nobody believing her that she was taken to this ninth floor and bought this thimble there, and yet people are saying that it didn't exist. So if you want to watch it, and you'll get what it is. But it's one of those episodes, though, when you do watch it, you kind of figure it out before, even if you had never watched it before. But that is one of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes. I've always loved that episode, because it's, I don't know, I love the movie, and Chris don't like them. He's like, I don't know why you like those movies, but I liked them when I was a kid. Did you ever watch Mannequin?
Oh yeah,
With Andrew McCarthy? Yeah.
yep.
I always liked those movies as a kid, especially
Me
the first one. And excuse me, I always wondered, and when I watched this episode, and I always think, did they kind of get that idea from the? I mean, listen, we've already said what it is. People's probably figuring it out by now if you've never seen it. It has to do with mannequins. I'm not going to tell you how, but you probably could figure it out. So I kind of wonder if they get that idea from this episode, because it just kind of, I mean, it's different. The movie,
but I could see them, taking different aspects of
because
it.
in Mannequin, isn't she like a Egyptian princess or something like that? I forget how that
Something like that. It seems like it's
or a genie or something. I forget how it works out. It's been so long since.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't know. I always like those movies.
I did, but I always liked that episode as well. But we probably give away too much.
Well, if you watch Twilight Zone the movie and you watch the wraparound stuff,
yeah,
they kind of give it away there. So if you've seen Twilight Zone the movie, then you probably already know, even if you haven't seen that episode.
Yeah.
Because when the guy driving the truck and Dan Aykroyd's character are talking back and forth about the Twilight Zone, they do mention that episode.
And it's a pretty popular episode too. It's one of those episodes that are kind of highlighted when people talk about the Twilight Zone. So
now I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to compare it to one that is definitely in the first season of the 1980s version. Now the Twilight Zone from the original Twilight Zone episode is called Walking Distance. And me and Candice were actually talking about this. I was talking to her about it last night, I think. And so the episode starts out with a guy at a gas station, and he's having some work done on his car. And
I like that episode.
He sees a sign for a town, and he tells the gas station attendant or mechanic or whatever, he's like, I grew up in that town, and that town's in walking distance, isn't it? And he said, yeah, it's about a mile and a half. And he said, well, I call that walking distance. And this guy, I think it's like an ad exec or something like that. So he's kind of, he's kind of getting burned out and stuff. And he thinks, I just like to take a trek down to my old hometown and see how much it's changed and stuff. I haven't been back in a long time. Chris, you say Walking Distance is one of your top favorite episodes.
Yeah, I like that episode.
Yeah, this is one of those whimsical type of episodes. So when he gets to the town, he goes to, I guess you would call it a soda fountain, or a lot of times they had pharmacies and soda fountains back in the day. And he doesn't realize at first, but he's been transported back to how everything was when he was a young boy.
Yeah.
So he goes in this place and he's like, do you still make the chocolate sodas with 3 scoops of ice cream? And he's like, well, sure we do. And he said, well, could you, make me one with 3 scoops of chocolate ice cream and all that? And he said, how much are these days? Well, it'll be a dime. He's like, a dime? That's what it used to be when I was a kid. And as he goes around and looks more, he comes across Ron Howard. When Ron Howard was a itty bitty boy, he was Ronnie Howard back in those days. Oh yeah, and Clint Howard too as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
both of them.
So Ron Howard is really little on this.
Mhm.
It's just so adorably cute too in this episode. So the guy comes across this little boy, and he says, the little boy says hello to him, and they start talking, and he says, he mentions his name and stuff, and Ronnie Howard gets all upset, and he says, I know that person and you're not him.
Yeah.
And he runs away and runs into the house. So we begin to realize that he stepped back in time is what he's done. And he meets his younger self.
And like his mom and dad.
And he meets his mom and dad. At first they think he's some kind of crazy person.
Yeah.
So the way that this one is like an episode called I think it's early life furnished in poverty or something like that, where Peter Riegert, who you may remember as Boone from Animal House, if you've seen Animal House, he's been on other stuff too, but that's, I always remember him playing Boone on Animal House. And so he is a writer who is suffering from burnout in the same way the ad exec guy is suffering from burnout in the original story. And he decides to go back to his hometown, or he has to go back there for some reason. And when he goes back, it's like it was when he was a boy, and he meets up with himself, and he tries to help the boy because he remembers, when I was a kid, I didn't really feel like I had anybody to talk to. My dad and I were kind of distant. And what's even weirder, though, is he says, I remember the older version of myself when I was a kid. I remember meeting him. And I remember being really angry when he had to leave, when he told me he had to leave. And the reason why he can't, and this was something that was not really explored in the early version of it, is that if he continued to stay in that time period, the older version would disappear.
Marty McFly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly right. I didn't even think about that till you said that, Candice. But but if you had not seen either version of those stories are just too similar to me to not be a remake of the older one.
Do you know what I think of whenever I watch it?
What's that?
There's an episode, one of the episodes of Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
Where Sam goes back and he sees a self. You know, is he his? Who is he? His self on self? He's his own self, right?
I've seen that episode. I'm just trying to remember. I can't remember.
It's one of the last ones, I believe.
And
yeah, he gets to see his family, and I think his brother goes to war. Maybe gets to see his brother. I could be talking to my hind end. I know there's an episode.
It sounds very, very familiar, Candace. So I don't think you're talking out your hind end.
It's just been so long since I've watched. Probably last time I watched, because that was another one of my dad's favorites.
Quantum Leap. I love Quantum Leap, and my cousin Heather.
I love it. Yeah.
She got me into Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I grew up watching Quantum Leap, and we got the DVDs when they came out, and me and Chris has watched them several times together. It's just been so long since I've seen them.
Do you remember the one where I know we're not specifically talking about, but do you remember the one where he met Stephen King?
Stephen King.
That was like the Boogeyman episode, I think.
I can't remember that one.
That one is so cool. Like Cujo was in it. Stephen King's a young Stephen King is
Really?
driving Christine, and it's
I
just
don't remember that episode at all.
yeah, that one's
I
great.
know I've seen it, but I just can't remember
I
it.
think it's called The Boogeyman.
Huh, I'll have to look that one up just to get refreshed on it. I'll probably be like, well, yeah, I've seen this because I know I've seen it. I've watched the series several times. There's only like 2 or 3 seasons of that.
Yeah, and that was a great show too, though.
I loved it. We always watched it. Like, winter was a time where we'd sit around watching like the Twilight Zone and Quantum Leap because they kind of went hand in hand with us for some reason. And Unsolved Mysteries. That was another
Unsolved Mysteries. Steve loves Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
We watched.
We all had the box sets of, and our favorite one was the Ghost box set of the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My dad, he loved all that stuff. So, whenever he was in control of the TV, that's what we were watching, which I had no qualms about it because I loved it too. So.
No, I wouldn't argue with anybody if they were
Oh no.
watching it. So it's a little bit after 7, and what I would love to do is, because we didn't go through too many of the episodes, if Candice would be game for it, if we could talk a little bit more about season 1, and maybe I can finish up the episodes before the next Friday, and we'll have a second show about season 1.
Yeah.
And because I feel like I blabbered on too and didn't give Candice enough chance.
No, that's fine. Maybe I can go and watch them all and get my memories refreshed and stuff like that on each episode that we've not talked about. And, that'd give me a chance to be more, instead of sitting here like a knot on the log.
No, I don't think you sat there like a knot on a log. You had a lot of good stuff to say. It's just, I sometimes get overly excited about the stuff I'm talking about, and I feel like I talk over people.
No, you've not talked over me at all. We both love this stuff. Twilight Zone, it's up there. It is, to me, it's one of the greatest shows ever made. I love classic TV. Classic TV is my forte whenever it comes to, like, especially stuff like the Twilight Zone. And Dana, she feels the same way. She loves that stuff too. So, you can't help but get excited about it. I just wish that I was prepared.
Well, I wish I thought I was more prepared, but I could, I was like, oh, gee, I had a few more episodes that I need to watch. So if you guys and gals will permit us, and even if you don't permit us, we'll probably do it anyway. We'll talk a little bit more the next Friday, and we'll probably be doing this for a little while to come. So me and Candice are really excited about,
Yeah, I'm game to talk about the Twilight Zone all the time. And, we can throw in little bits and pieces of other shows like we talked about, the 80s version. We talked about, Quantum Leap. Now, Quantum Leap is one of them shows I would love to watch. It's been years, probably 10 years or more, since I've sat down and watched Quantum Leap, like full Quantum Leap. I would love to sit down.
Maybe me and Candice on down the road will do a Quantum Leap, because I've got all the episodes of Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I just love it. Al and Sam.
Yeah,
I just think that show, it's kind of like the Twilight Zone. It was kind of, ahead of its time in ways. I think they did try to do a remake of it, and I tried to watch it, and I wasn't interested.
Yeah, I think I tried to, and it just didn't. It didn't have the same charisma that the original did.
The like dynamic between Sam and Al was just so unique. It was just, it was, you can't touch that. Not to me, at least.
No, there's just, and even though I like the 80s Twilight Zone, there's no touching the original.
No.
There's really no comparison with the original.
And for some reason, it has nothing to do with like space or nothing like that. But a show I always think of when I think of like Twilight Zone, and people will be like, how do you think of that? But I don't know. I just do. I'm weird in the way I think. But Highway to Heaven is another one of those shows that I kind of, that one is more, supernatural based, because it has to do with
Mhm.
an angel. But, the things that he finds himself like in, there's a part where he's like a werewolf, like an episode where he's a werewolf. There's just different episodes. I love Highway to Heaven. I don't
Yeah.
know if you've ever seen it or not. Did you ever watch Highway to Heaven?
Yeah, I mean, me and my mom will watch it because mom was a huge Michael Landon
Yes.
fan. She watched that, and she watched Little House on the Prairie, and all that stuff. And speaking of werewolves and Michael Landon was
Yeah.
a werewolf, and I was a
I
teenage
was a teenage
werewolf.
werewolf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I
So we
think,
got 6 degrees of Michael Landon.
yeah, I think that episode was kind of a nod to that. And,
Yeah.
but my favorite episode of Highway to Heaven is got Dick Van Dyke in it, and he's a puppeteer, like a homeless puppeteer. But it's such a good episode. But I always love that show.
But I don't want Candace to be late for there's a few things she's got to do before, I hope the roads haven't already gotten bad.
It's bad anyway.
For those of y'all that don't know, we're in the middle of like a second snow apocalypse or whatever you want to call it. We've had one winter storm right on top of the other almost. And it's okay if you can stay inside and keep your electric and all that, but when you got to get out, it's a little bit of a different story.
Nerve-wracking.
So me and Steve have to go tomorrow and we're going to get our COVID shots. We're going to get some updated COVID shots because this last bout of COVID about did both of us in. So we're, and I feel like I'm still recovering from it. So
come say hi. No. Whatever I've got is held on to me like the Dickens. I've got a double middle infection. So by creeping around. But come here, Ghost. Come say hi. Look, come on.
Hey, Ghost.
Say hi.
Aw, there's my buddy.
Say hi. What do you
just
want?
like my Reg getting up there like that. And he seems a little shy like Reggie won't necessarily look at the camera. Reggie does that.
He's something else, but I'm telling you. He loves his new brother though, Coda. So
you love Coda, Ghost?
Yeah, I didn't think that he was gonna like him, but they ended up really like just liking each other a whole lot. So
well, that's great. That's a relief for you guys.
Yeah. Now Miko, on the other hand, he's kind of indifferent. He can give or take. But Miko is my shadow, so he don't really. I mean, he could give or take Ghost too. So he's more concerned about me than anybody.
I've got my shadow too. Darcy tends to be my shadow, and she's my little bitty girl. But anyway, before I start talking about, I had a lot of fun. I'm really liking this kind of new format, new direction we're taking these Friday Foolish shows into, and the way Candice talks, she is too, and so expect for it to continue. I'm going to have hopefully a lot of new programming. I'm going to be covering. I told Candice about this. I'm going to be covering every damn Kanan film I can get my hands on. Now, Steve tells me that he said, well, not all of them were made by Kanan. They were just put out by Kanan. I said, I don't care.
I'm going to do the whole shebang.
Yeah, I'm going to do the whole shebang, even the softcore adult film. So for those of you that are into that, you will enjoy that, I guess. And then we'll be moving on into the Golden Globus years, and that's going to be a lot of horror and sci-fi. And Chris might be joining me for some of that.
You're going to join us for that?
Which one was it?
When I get to the Golden Globus era of Kanan, where they had a lot of horror and sci-fi and action.
Well, I would also be interested if you do them. That is. The American Ninja movies.
Oh, I'm going to be covering everything.
Oh. I thought he was going to say the softcore porn.
But yeah, I actually just recently watched the first two American Ninja movies again. I'm gonna try to eventually get to where I watch the whole series, but like I really enjoy those first two American Ninja movies. That guy, I can't remember his name. I think it was like Michael something that played the lead role in the first two American Ninja movies.
Is it Michael Dudikoff or is it somebody different?
Something like that. I can't remember what exactly his last name is, but whatever happened to that guy? That guy I thought he was a pretty decent actor.
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe I have to look that up and see
Let's look into that.
out what happened to him.
I just want to come say hi to everybody.
Hey, before Chris he leaves, you got time?
Yeah. Sure.
I know Dana don't mind.
No.
Do you care if he kind of tells about his what is it? Is your channel?
Oh, my YouTube.
Oh yeah, come on.
And he shared
that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, like I said, or it's my YouTube channel is called Crater Mania. You can just go to youtube.com/@CraterMania. That's the link for it. Basically, I'm just right now. The only content I'm working on for it is the 500 movies that I'm watching in 2025. And I'm getting through a lot of them really fast.
Yeah, he's been watching movies.
And I'm like
binge watching the movies.
And so it could be a possibility that I will get beyond 500. But for like each week, I'm just going to be doing like a video on Sundays covering anywhere from like 10 to 12 movies. Because I don't want to like cover like a crap ton or anything on one video, But like,
you're gonna do videos or live streams?
Well, the first video I did last week was pre-recorded, but Candice did get me a new laptop as a late Christmas gift this week.
Awesome. Tell you that. Yeah.
So I may switch over to doing live streams for everything now because to be honest with you, I really don't like doing pre-recorded videos and having to edit them and everything. And I just feel like live streams are a lot easier, and they're more real that way too.
Yeah, there's a lot more interaction.
It's more authentic, and because everybody messes up from time to time, and to me, it feels like it's rehearsed and stuff when you do pre-recorded videos, and like it feels too perfect, and that's just not how real life is. So
not for us.
And it might make you more relaxed, Chris, to just do it just free form on the fly, getting on there doing it live.
But I just want to step in here. If anybody wants to come over and check out my channel, like I said, I'm just starting out, so go easy on me. I'm not I don't have the most amount of knowledge when it comes to the YouTube stuff so far, but I'm figuring it out as I go.
So is it every Sunday?
Every Sunday I'll be doing a video for the movie thing, but I've got some ideas. I want to do some additional content, maybe here and there, like some shorts
or unboxings,
for
maybe?
like just different things that's non-movie related, whether it be wrestling or like cartoons. Or what collectibles. I've got a bunch of different things I want to do, but I guess just keep an eye out on my channel for that stuff.
Yep. Go and subscribe to Chris's channel because I'm sure he's going to have some exciting stuff, and I'm really excited to hear that he's going to be doing a lot more live streams.
I'm excited to do it, Dana, and put it out there. But I just want to step in for a minute and say hi. Sure. I got to go back and finish my work shift.
Oh, is it not time for you?
Well, I'm about done. But I'll see you guys later.
See ya. So I know Candice has got to get going, but I just want to let people know that I'm going to have the Dick's Picks coming up. The films of Dick Randall, the films that he produced. He produced a lot more than Sandy Cove did, so be prepared for that. We've got the Roadhouse watch along coming up on Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Me and Steve should have adult beverages in hand. You could feel free to have your own adult beverage or not. You can drink soda pop.
Shirley Temples.
Shirley Temples. You can drink milk if you want. I don't care. But just be there and hang out with me and Steve. It's sure to be a great time.
Be there, don't be square.
Exactly. So got a lot of great programming coming up. Like I said, be sure to subscribe to Chris's channel. It sounds like he's going to have some exciting stuff coming up there. And stay tuned to me and Candice for Friday Foolish. We're going to be talking a whole heck of a lot of Twilight Zone and everything in between.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I am too. I'm really, really excited. But we're going to go on and get out of here for the night. I want to thank Candice, first of all, for being my lovely co-host once again for another Friday Foolish. I want to thank everybody that was in the chat. The poet, Millet, Chris was in the chat tonight or this evening. Everybody that was watching that didn't feel comfortable chatting. No rule says you got to chat. You can come and lurk and watch me and Candice talk about whatever. And for people that will watch us on the replay, thank you as well. And so with all that being said, me and Candice are off like a couple of dirty shirts. These shirts ain't dirty. I don't think so. I don't think when this too spotted up. These shirts ain't dirty, but we're off like a couple of them. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before we get off of here, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. And
sorry, Dana.
Oh, that's fine. Oh my goodness, there he is. There's Coda. And Ghost.
Well, I just want to show him off real quick, but
he's adorable. I love seeing him. Any pictures or videos, you can send them my way, Candice. I love seeing that dog.
He's a big boy.
Just like Reggie. Him and Reggie would be almost for his size, I think. But anyway, we are out of here for the evening. Everybody stay safe. If you're experiencing the snow,
stay warm.
Stay doubly safe. Stay warm. And we'll see everybody next time. Bye, everybody.
Hey, guys.